Hello again. This is the 23rd of March 2021. This is yet another Aughty Thoughty. And I'm going to talk about Button Moon again. I'm putting aside all the things I've already covered about, why it appeals to me personally, my fan theories, etc. I've kind of been down a completely different rabbit hole lately. Because my birthday was a couple of weeks ago. This is Polly. Down you go, Polly. And my auntie bought me this amazing t-shirt, look. It says, "Evil eye, no nut ob noom." There's a spoon family, a telescope and some little banana birds, and a nice big rainbow. Because, it's sort of 80s kid stuff, always had to have a rainbow on, didn't it? So very like the modern day, really. So I noticed on the label it said supports the Button Moon Trust, which works for disadvantaged children and animal welfare. And I thought, well, I'd better check this out because, as you know, I have another, as regular viewers, of course, not necessarily you personally will know, I have another Button Moon t-shirt, which also said the same thing. And I thought, well, I don't want to be walking around with something that's advertising, something along the lines of Autism Speaks or PTA. I mean, disadvantaged children, animal welfare, that could be pretty much anything, couldn't it? So I decided I'm going to have a look at what this charity actually does. Oh, as everyone's seen now. And I had quite a surprise. I mean, it's a perfectly nice charity, it's working in Norfolk, provides a sort of venue for arts events, and they do kind of a lot of things with disabled kids. And what I think is really nice as well is, quite a, an unusual thing that's very, very special and very good. They kind of go into prisons and kind of work with prisoners and film the prisoners using puppets, teaching, telling the kids bedtime stories and things, and then they sort of pass them on to the children. And that's something that is I think not enough for that kind of thing goes on. Anyway, so anyway, I found there's not a lot of information around about what the Button Moon Trust actually does. There's a website which again is not particularly forthcoming. And I found the sort of personal website of Ian Allen, who's the guy who actually wrote the stories for Button Moon, and he's the founder of the Button Moon Trust. And I sort of looked into like the history of how it all came about, and I found myself got sort of almost going up with a completely new spin, which is very nice. I mean, it's a I don't know if you call it a secondary spin, an extension to my Button Moon fandom, which I've talked about at length, as you probably know. No, Zeb, no, it's not about you. It's not all about you, even though you're a cat. I lost my train of thought now. Yeah, so I've started sort of getting very interested in the whole history of the Playboard puppet company. It began in 1971. There were two puppeteers who were working for a company called Cap and Bells, which was run by a woman named Violet Philpott, who's probably most famous for Rainbow. She worked on Rainbow. She was the puppeteer who operated Zippy until she got a bad back and couldn't do it anymore, apparently. So it's Ian Allen and John Thurtle. They were both working for Violet Philpott, the Cap and Bells. They decided that they weren't sort of getting enough work, so they decided they'd start their own company. Now, what I found really interesting about the sort of description of them as people. I said Ian was the sort of creative, arty one who wrote the stories and designed the sets and things, and you know, John was the kind of business mind and the craftsman who, you know, put all these things, all these ideas into solid form. And it kind of really reminded me of Mr. and Mrs. Spoon. You know, Mr. Spoon's like the dreamer, and Mrs. Spoon's the doer. Mr. Spoon just kind of wants to go into space. You know, he's got his head in the clouds, zooming off to the moon, and Mrs. Spoon takes care of the basic practicalities of life. You know, they have these sort of yin and yang personalities, so the opposites in a complementary symbiosis. You know, Mr. Spoon's a sort of water, air, and Mrs. Spoon's an earth, fire. And together they create this a very sweet, intelligent little brainchild. So they created their puppet company. They did surprisingly well at first. Apparently, they started the company over a cup of tea in a satsuma, and it was very much Ian's idea. John was quite sceptical at first, but allowed himself to be persuaded. And yeah, their career went from strength to strength. They started off, you know, just doing sort of little puppet booth shows in parks and schools and things, and sort of ended up sort of within 9 years they were on telly. And Button Moon came around, you know, quite late. They started off just doing sort of standard fairy tale type stories, you know, with a kind of humorous twist. And apparently Ian had the idea of Button Moon. He was just walking home from a show one day and sort of looked up and saw a full moon and thought it just looked like a button shining in the sky. And this sort of idea developed of a world where, you know, everything's kind of made out of household objects. Yes, and they made Button Moon. It was also a touring theatre show. Apparently it only ended in 1988, sorry, because Thames Television, who were making it, decided to stop funding it. And there was actually quite a lot more shows in the pipeline, but it for whatever reason they decided it was not going to go ahead. So yeah, the TV series ended before it really should have done. And I mean I noticed this myself. You know, I just think, you know, the series were actually kind of getting better towards the end. I actually prefer the later series to the first ones. The first, you know, they're perfectly good. They're nice stories and everything. But I think as time goes on, you know, the characters become much more developed. The world becomes much more developed. I think there's sort of quite a lot more scope for you know, exploring the blanket sky. And I think it's just a shame it came to an end when it did, really. The theatre show continued to tour until 1992, when they decided they were going to make another TV series called The Spooks of Bottle Bay, which I do actually remember. It was on before I got in from school, so, you know, sometimes I just switch the telly on and, you know, the sort of end credits of Bottle Bay would be going on. It's about some little ghosts that live on a ship in a bottle. I remember the theme tune going, "They're the spooks, ooh, the spooks of Bottle Bay." And that would sometimes be just finishing as I put the telly on for whatever I was watching in the early 90s. Don't know what was on. Funhouse. Mike and Angelo, I used to like that. Must have been something else. Something else I was watching CITV for. And this was the time I was into Farthing Wood, so I was probably watching BBC most of the time, really. Well, at least once a week. We used to get our favourite shows once a week. Kids. And then it all came to a halt very suddenly in 1995 when John Thirtle dropped dead. On Ian Allen's website, he sort of pays tribute to my partner, my dear John, and I thought, oh God, I'm glad I'm not much of a crier. And then I realised, yeah, I'm emotionally engaged with these guys, yeah. I don't know what he died of. No, that's sort of not a matter of public record. But I did read he had an obituary printed, saying that he was finishing the last scripts for the last series of Bottle Bay from his hospital bed. So clearly it wasn't like an accident, like a car crash or anything like that. He had actually been ill. No. So anyway, then everything goes quiet for 20 years. I don't know. Playboard Puppets was still in business as far as I can tell. Presumably they were just sort of going back to doing touring shows. Apparently Ian Allen stayed on as the head of the company. In 2015, that's when Violet Philpott died. Who'd employed them originally. But she actually sort of stayed good friends with them, all through their career. And she left an undisclosed sum of money to Ian, no will. And he used it to set up the Button Moon Trust. And they have a venue in Norfolk called the Black Barn, where they do sort of arts classes, performing arts, puppetry, do a sort of a course for aspiring children's writers, that sort of thing. And they do a lot of work with kind of disabled kids. Apparently Violet was very interested in what she calls the therapeutic benefits of puppetry, and relating this to a subject close to my heart. I did read a magazine article in which Ian said that he was talking to an autistic boy once through the puppet, and the puppet would sort of encourage this kid to communicate. Presumably he wasn't a very chatty child, but he would talk to the puppet when talking to humans was too daunting. And he's actually quoted as saying, I'm dyslexic myself, so I understand the need to find novel ways to communicate. Which is just so refreshingly reasonable and well informed about neurodiversity as a whole, really. Neurodiverse solidarity. And of course, dyslexia is another form of neurodiversity. It's another spectrum in itself. And it did just sort of make me a little bit sad that there's not more of that sort of understanding around. But yeah, Ian Allen, top guy. I don't know why he's not more iconic, really, sort of more of a national treasure. Maybe sort of eschews the limelight yeah, I'm just kind of wary because I know every time I become a fan of a famous person, it turns out they do something absolutely awful. You know, like they turn out to be like a violent alcoholic or something, and I'm just sort of dreading the day that I find out that, you know, Ian Allen's done something absolutely abhorrent. You know, he's sort of run a drug cartel or whatever. I sort of had this running joke in our house because my in-laws, whenever they're talking about a sort of musician or an actor they admire, you know, sooner or later one of them's going to go, he's a Tory though. So yeah, whenever someone speaks in praise of a famous person in our house, you know, is he a Tory? Yes, I don't actually know the way that Ian Allen votes, but I'm just going to cross my fingers. He's not a Tory. I have talked before about how I've sort of sworn off becoming a fan of famous people, especially famous people who are still alive. I mean, you know, he's 72. He's not exactly at death's door. Still got a chance to, you know, commit an armed robbery or sort of come out as a vocal anti-vaxxer or something. Please don't do that. I'd be very sad. Yeah, I'm still I'm still researching the Playboard puppet company as a whole. As I say, there's sort of big gaps in my knowledge. That sort of 20-year period when nothing really happened. What went on there? I was doing something. And there's not a lot of information out there. It does seem to be quite a secretive organisation. I found one magazine interview. There's John Thurtle's obituary. The Button Moon Trust website and Ian Allen's personal website. That's all I've found really. There's one sort of little news segment when Button Moon was cancelled. And yeah, there's sort of a list of credits, pretty much anything sort of in the 80s and early 90s with a puppet theme. And there's a lot of it about. It's easy to forget how big puppets were before CGI took over everything. They were sort of very much the staple of children's TV. You know, even live action things had a puppet in somewhere. And you know, every presenter had a little puppet sidekick. And they kind of had a hand in everything puppet related. You know. Just realised what I did there. A hand in. Yeah, quite literally a hand in. Pretty much anything puppet related at the time. Yeah, I think puppets they are out of fashion at the moment, aren't they? A lot of people sort of talk about them as being a bit creepy and things. I do think there is a sort of uncanny valley type oddity about puppets. You know, they're sort of a toy that's sort of slightly alive, and it's a bit odd. But as I say, they were the staple of children's TV for, you know, several decades. you know, going right back to the earliest days, you know, Muffin the Mule, one of the first kids' TV shows. It was puppet, you know, and the Bill and Ben and Andy Pandy and all those, and then I mean, it's arguably stop motion is puppetry. And you know, relating it to autism as well, I find it's this way of sort of speaking once removed. Now, I did actually have some little puppet toys when I was a kid. Remember, I kept them in my school bag. I mean, this is when I was in my teens, you know, not like a little kid playing with a toy. I mean, I was in my teens. I used to have a couple of puppets in my school bag, and I had a little cat. It was like a little 2-finger puppet thing. And I had a sea serpent that I made for a project, actually, in technology. And it was just like a kind of one of those that kind of goes down your arm. What's it called? Like a kind of sock puppet type thing. I'm sure there's a proper name for it, but it's escaped my mind at the moment. And you know, I sort of get them out in class, and it's like a way of amusing my classmates, but it's not me, it's the puppet. You know, you sort of step back a bit, and the puppet's doing the talking. And I think that's something that's, you know, that makes it useful for autistic people. You know, you don't have to speak for yourself, you speak through the puppet. I think I knew, you know, when someone else was using a puppet to talk to me, I knew it was a trick. I knew that they were sort of trying to get me to talk to the person through using a cute little animal. And I enjoyed watching puppet shows. As I say, they were very much the thing before everything became CGI. It's funny how you go through fashions, you know, with animation and filming techniques. That's the puppet era, and there was sort of a time in the 90s. You know, you talk about 90s kids shows, everyone sort of thinks about like the animation style. They forget how big stop motion was, claymation specifically. And then in the 21st century, the CGI takes over, and you know, the claymation becomes a sort of arty curiosity, and the puppets sort of die out altogether, pretty much. Which is a bit sad, you know. It's there used to be a lot more variety in children's shows. You know, so I started watching things with my son. I mean, they're perfectly good shows, but you know, just the amount of CGI, it just gets a bit wearing after a while, you know. Does nobody actually do any sort of craftsmanship anymore? I suppose CGI in itself is an art form. But yeah, you can get a bit CGI'd out, I think. I'm going to leave it there for now. Yeah, they take away the take-home message. Well, for me certainly is not all famous people are bastards. There are some nice famous people out there. It happens, you know. Yeah, certainly. Certainly, Alan and John Thurtle are my new heroes.